So this is the second part of the lecture series on Tennyson's Ulysses. So we studied about the context in the previous lecture, the context and the legend on which it is based, and the deviation from the Homeric legend and the affinity to the Roman legend, and who the character of Ulysses is. What are the main points that we need to remember when we are going to study the character of Ulysses? What is the major difference between the Homeric Ulysses and the Ulysses character of Dante's Inferno? Now we are going into the text proper. I have divided the text into two parts. We are going to do the first part, that is the first 34 lines, the first 32 lines, and that again leaves with another 38 lines, if I am not mistaken. The poem is round about 70 lines. So we are going to do the first 32 lines today. And in these 32 lines, time and again, the major theme that you will come across is that of existentialism, is that of an angst, is that of an existential crisis that Ulysses is feeling or undergoing after after his journey back from uh, the Trojan War, after he comes back to Ithaca. And we'll time and again see words which always personify and signify uh, depression, frustration, existentialism. Words like idle, still, barren, rusted, all these kinds of words. So we are going into the first part, the first uh, 5 lines. It little profits that an idle king by this still hearth among those barren crags matched with an aged wife. I meet and dole unequal laws onto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. So again, this is Ulysses himself. This is Ulysses himself speaking to himself. This is a realization that Ulysses is having inside his mind, uh, inside his psychology, inside his psyche. And what Ulysses, the great adventure, is realizing is that the peacefulness, he regards the peacefulness of settled civilizational life to be a very base element, where everyone is just uh, hoarding and sleeping. They are just trying to increase upon their material wealth. They are just trying to eat as much as they can, and they just want to sleep. So, since he's an adventurer and he loves to be in motion all the time, to see this city filled with people, to see Ithaca filled with people who idealize peace, who idealize serenity, who do not idealize excitement, who do not idealize adventure, who would love to have a complete life of peace in their homes, with a full belly of food, with their loved ones, and increasing upon their personal and individual health, individual wealth. This idealization Ulysses considers to be very base, because he's a great adventurer, and he what he seeks is danger, what he seeks is uncertainty. What he seeks is to traverse the earth to meet the uncertain. He does not want to spend his life living in one complete place. He does not want material wealth. He wants experiential wealth. He wants experiences. And so these are the last 3 lines: unequal laws onto a savage race. After his all these journeys, his great journeys and his great experience of the Trojan War, he feels like people are savages who have no code of honor, no code of conduct, and they are bound together by some unequal laws. Now this is again something which is very universal. Laws are in fact unequal. So the last 4 lines, he's speaking about his people, and the first part of the stanza, he's speaking about kingship himself, and he's kind of analyzing or calculating the life of a king, and he says that the only job that a king has to do is sit idle among these barren crags, among these worthless people around him, among this group of hoarding, sleeping, feeding citizens that he has. Do nothing, can unable to go to adventures, bound by the social responsibility of governing his people, governing these savages by unequal laws. So he's unable to find any reason as to the point of kingship. What is kingship? What how does kingship help in the development of society and civilization? And then he comes to his personal life. Match between age wife I meet and dole. Uh, he thinks his wife to be aged, though, since he has been at the Trojan War and the war was fought for I think 10 or 12 years, and he's come back and he now finds his wife not to be attractive. He uh, finds his wife to be aged, with whom I meet and dole. Met and dole means to like weigh and measure. It's almost like uh, it's almost like his relationship with his wife is just that of it's just an official written on paper relationship. It's there's nothing more physical or nothing more psychological about it. Obviously there's nothing more physical because he considers his wife absolutely unattractive, and it's quite clear from his words that he even there's no psychological affinity that he feels towards his wife. So for the first 5 lines, what we come to realize is the fact that Ulysses has no affinity to his kingdom, to his post of kingship, to his people, or to his wife. So everything which a common man or a common king would desire, Ulysses has no desire for any of it. A very existential angst which is prevalent within these lines. Existential, the word existential means not to be sure about your own life, not to be sure about which way to proceed or how to live you live your own life, what to do and what not to do, what decisions should be made. Or existentialism can also be defined as doing the duty that is being prescribed, but not feeling satisfied with or completed by doing that duty. So it's like you are doing the duty. Ulysses is doing the duty of a king, but he's not satisfied. He wants more out of life. He's utterly dissatisfied with his life as a king. He's yearning for his life as an adventurer. Now, line 6 to 17, there are around 10 lines here, so I'm not going to read all the lines. Uh, the poem is there for your reference, so please refer to the poem and then refer to the explanation. So I will uh, deal with the main points. The confession is out. The speaker Ulysses is restless because he has wanderlust or wanderlust. It's in his being to travel. He wants to drink life to the lees, and this has become a very important phrase in English literature: to drink life to the lees, or carpe diem. Carpe diem, which means make hay while the sun lasts. So as long as you have the opportunity, try to live your life to the fullest, because a time will come when the opportunity will just vanish out into thin air. And Ulysses fears this. Ulysses fears this fact that one day his life is going to vanish into thin air, and he is absolutely afraid and scared of dying as a normal man, a normal king who sits in his palace and governs his people. He says that he has wanderlust. He lusts not the body, he lusts not power, he lusts not relationship, he lusts not goal, he lusts wandering, he lusts adventure. And he wants to die the death of an uh, adventurer, not the death of a common man. He wants to drink life to the least, and when the cup has been emptied, he wants to die at the death of an adventurer. Uh, this is mostly what the lines 6 to 17 uh, mostly deal with. It is his confession that he thirsts for adventures, and he does not thirst for kingship. He does not want kingship. If we look into if we look into the lines like, for always roaming with a hungry heart, much have I seen and known, cities of men and manners, climates, councils, governments, myself not least but honored of them all, and drunk delight of battle with my peers, far on the ringing plains of windy Troy. So he's he is essentializing, he is idealizing his own adventures, the Trojan War, the Trojan landscape, And we can very much understand that this is what he wants out of his life. This is what he desires out of his life. That his heart, that his heart is hungry to roam. That he wants to be seen among cities and men's and manners and councils and climates and government hitherto unknown to man. Discover new lands, discover new customs, and uh, understand them, study them. Tennyson's use of colons and semicolons together with enjambment challenge the reader to make the meaningful pauses. This is especially true for lines 6 and 10, where most pauses are midline, which helps break up the steady iambic beat. Now, again, uh, this is a part of a technical part of the poem, what we call rhyme scheme, metrical pattern. There are popular metrical patterns like the iambic pentameter, trochaic hexameter, meters like that. Now, we don't have to go into the meters. I'm not going to just remember the fact that he uses enjambment or enjambment to. Enjambment means that he's putting in words. He's putting in words, he's putting in punctuations where it perhaps may not be necessary to put in punctuations or put in words, just to affect the tempo of the poem, just to identify his existential angst. This is a man, this is a man who is anxious, who is existentially anxious, and this man will speak in an anxious manner. He's not going to speak in a common way. Another line that I should clear out is that loved me and alone on shore, and went through scuddling drifts, the rainy Hades, Hyades actually. No, Hyades should not be considered with Hades, the god of the underworld, the Greek god of underworld, or the Greek god of death. Hyades here is a group of stars in the constellation of Taurus. Taurus. It is believed to foretell the coming of rain. So he's again essentializing the life of an adventure where he would be on the seas on his ship, and he would look at the skies, he would look at the Hyades constellation and foretell rain. And you can understand that rain in the sea is a very dangerous thing. The seas are turned up topsy-turvy, upside down, with waves as high as anything. And vex the dim sea, I become the name, for I am always roaming with a hungry heart. Vex the dim sea, and it's almost like when there is a forecast of rain, it's almost taken for granted that of the fact that the sea is vexed, the sea is angry, and that is why uh, the sea is inflicting all those all waves onto the ships, onto itself. So the entire 10 lines here are, well, existential crisis, his existential angst leads to the unearthing of his clear-cut desire, the desire of wanderlust, his desire for being an adventurer, his desire to be back on the seas and in the rain, fighting the waves, studying the skies, going to new lands, meeting new peoples, learning new customs, fighting in new lands. So, as you can understand, his desires are out. His desires are is the closeted desires of his heart, those desires which he had closeted, because this is not how a king should behave. A king should desire stability, and so he had closeted all these sentiments within himself, but they are out finally. I am a part of all that I have met, yet all experiences is an arch weather through, where through gleams that unraveled world whose margin fades forever and forever and forever when I move. The next four lines again sum up Ulysses' existential dilemma in a somewhat abstract manner. His past experiences are an integral part of who he is. So, the first part, not the first part, the entire of these 1, 2, 3, and 4 lines is the fact that Ulysses is pointing out that how his experiences has defined his being, how he can never be the person that he is without the past experiences that he had. So, if he was to live his life completely as ruler sitting in Ithaca and ruling his people, then he would never be the man that he had become. And So for to become the man that he is, a man who is well versed in the wiles of the world, a man who is not taken aback by the furies of the sea, a man who is not taken aback by newer customs, a man who wants to incorporate newer ideals within himself, he needs to adventure further. He needs to learn and see more and more lands, learn about newer and newer customs. Forever and forever when I move, so whenever he moves, he learns something and which enriches him. With sitting here in Ithaca, then he is not being able to enrich himself anymore. How dull is it to pause to make an end, to rust unburnished, not shine in use. So here he's comparing himself to a sword. He's comparing himself to a sheathed sword, a sword which is inside its sheath, which is not being pulled out for a long time and not used in battles. He's comparing himself to a sheathed sword. He's unable to undertake, unable to undertake his adventures. He's like a sword, which is of a sword inside the sheath is of no use. A sword can only be used once it's taken out of the sheath. And Ulysses says how dull it is to pause, to make an end. It's as if like the sword he will never be unsheathed. And inside in that sheath, he is rusting. The steel of the sword, the steel of his body, all his uh, all his all his physical, psychological acumen, all his wisdom, they are rusting. They are getting destroyed, and they can only shine further if they are used in if they're unsheathed. If Ulysses continues to undertake the journeys that his heart desires. Again, existential angst, comparing himself to uh, a sheathed sword. And this, again, 8 or 9 lines will be the end of this lecture. This will conclude the first part. So here, so the poem starts with his existential angst. Then from existential angst, Ulysses gives way to the desires of his heart. And then Ulysses justifies the desires of his heart by saying that the man that he is can only be created, that he has become what he is because of the journeys that he has undertook, because of the adventures that he has undertaken. And then again, he laments his situation as a sheath sword. And the first part ends line 24 to 32 again. Ulysses gives more reason why he should continue to keep moving on. Why Ulysses's life as a stagnant king can never be beneficial to anyone, not Ithaca or not to Ulysses himself. Uh, that again becomes the subject matter of these lines, which end part one. According to my lecture series, the poem is written in a complete whole. There are no part ones or twos. Since the poem is a very long one, for about 70 lines, I have divided it into 32, and in the next part, let us say if I can put all 38 lines together, or we may break it further. So he gives more reason to move on. Time waits for no man, every hour is precious. Every hour could bring forward new things from out of the eternal silence. So again, drink life to the least, carpe diem. There is eternal silence, and once there is eternal silence, there is no further hour to move on to. So so life can only be fulfilled until and as long as until the eternal silence is reached, that it moves on and on and on, that it does not wait sitting for the eternal silence, but almost journey towards it. Ulysses pictures himself in the same vile position for the 3 years or 3 days when inside he craves travel and knowledge right round the earth and beyond all human thought. The reader can now get used to a good grasp of what is going on in Ulysses' heart. Here he is desperate. Here is a desperate yearning of a man of his former life keen to move on. So for 3 years and 3 days, Ulysses has been back in Ithaca, serving as as the king of Ithaca. But inside, he does not feel kingly. He feels anxious. He is dissatisfied with his life, and he craves travel and knowledge, the only way of life that he has ever known, his wanderlust. And we get a good grasp of his heart. We get a good grasp of his heart, that he's a desperate man yearning for his former nomadic life. Settled life is not for him. He craves that, the adventure, or the uncertainty or the excitement of a nomadic life. So this is where we are going to stop the second part of the lecture. Now we are going to come back again with another part, going further into the poem.